Let us help you reach your peak in retirement. It's time for Retirement Elevated with Sean Lee.
Hey everybody, welcome into mid-September. Thanks for hanging out with us here on the podcast. This is Retirement Elevated with Sean Lee. What's going on, Sean? How are you, bud?
Another day, man. I'm doing well.
Doing pretty good. How's things been? Kids been back in school a couple weeks, tolerating it, getting through it?
They're getting through it.
Yeah, that's good.
Still liking it, which is good.
Well, you know, that social interaction, man, and when you're a kid. My heart breaks for kids, man. It really does. Mine's completely grown. She's in the Navy, but it's like, man, that's a lot of, there's a lot of good memories to be. And I guess for some kids, they're like, school's terrible. But for other kids, just really kind of enjoy that time to not only learn, but just that, how to learn how to socialize.
Fortunately, like my daughter, she made the cheer team, so she's got that.
Yeah, and your boy plays baseball,
interaction, and he's had his team sports. We actually completed a full baseball season, which was awesome. And now they're just doing light practices here fall, and we might play in one tournament. But he's got baseball and soccer, so they're still getting that interaction outside of school. But I couldn't imagine if they didn't have that, and if they didn't have the neighbor kids. We have 15 kids on our street that they can play with, so it's lightened the blow a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. Well, hopefully things will continue to move in better directions. But 2020 is still going to throw some curveballs at us the remainder of this year. So with that, we will get back into our podcast topic from the prior show. We were doing the 10-step layoff survival guide. We went 1 through 5. So if you did not catch that prior podcast, go check that out. You don't necessarily have to listen to them in order, but it probably make a little bit more sense. So go check that out on the website, elevatemyretirement.com. That's elevatemyretirement.com. Go to the podcast page, subscribe to the podcast, listen to the past one there where we had part 1 of this conversation, and we will dive into part 2 this go around. If you'd like your own copy of the PDF or the guide, you can call Sean and the team and let them know. They'll get that out to you at 855-50-RETIRE. That's 855-50-RETIRE. All right, so we went through 1 through 5. I'll just kind of run them down real fast. 1 was keep calm, take it one step at a time. 2 was determine your living expenses. 3 was create an inventory of your resources. 4 was add in severance pay if it was a layoff. 5, understand how unemployment benefits work, whether you were furloughed, laid off, whatever the case might be. And now let's get into the next one. 6, Sean, learn about the health insurance options. As we mentioned before, even if you haven't been laid off, this might be a good one to know anyway, because for a lot of folks, they do want to retire early, and there's a gap sometimes in the health insurance option before you can kick over if you're not 65, right? So
Right. I mean, you look pre-65, you've got to make some choices. And if you retire before 65 or you're let go or laid off, whatever it may be, you're probably going to lose your health insurance. And when that happens, I mean, you could be eligible for COBRA. And what COBRA is, it's just one of those fancy acronyms that's, Consolidated Omnibus Budget Reconciliation Act, which basically just provides eligible employees and their dependents the option to continue their health insurance coverage following the loss of a job. Now, usually the cost of COBRA is pretty high because you're responsible for the entire cost of COBRA. But, some things happen. So through the CARES Act, those who have lost their job due to the 2020 pandemic will qualify for an actual special enrollment period through the Federal Health Care Exchange. So it gives you 60 days to enroll, and in many cases, it provides the possibility that you could find a cheaper option for yourself. So there are choices out there, COBRA, the exchanges, some things like that. But you have to go in the open market and get your own health insurance at that point.
And honestly, even before that, COBRA, in a lot of cases, actually wasn't the most expensive option. Who would have thought that? Just because of the marketplace. So there's definitely some things to learn and know about that. And there's a great section here in this guide about learning how some of those health insurance options. So definitely request your copy of this. So number 7, Sean, get a new Social Security estimate, especially if you're in your 60s, right?
Yeah, I mean it's good to have them updated anyways. And I'm 40 right now, and so I get a statement every 5 years. But that's part of the process of understanding your resources of income, right? So go to ssa.gov, get your own login. You can pull your statement, and when you start to look at incorporating those sources of income, Social Security is one of those areas that are marketed so heavily by advisors, and hey, don't allow up to 85% of your Social Security to be taxed, or let's maximize your benefits. Well, also in my mind, all Social Security is a tool to offset the use of your assets. And so you want to leverage Social Security to allow for you to spend less of your own money to create the same income that you need. And so when we start to look at, well, do I take it at 62? Do I take it at 66 or 70? Well, it's all based on math. It's all a mathematical calculation that you need to spend some time on, but you can't do that if you have stale data. So it's good to get a new Social Security estimate.
Yeah, definitely. And you can go to ssa.gov again for that, ssa.gov. All right, step number 8 is now this, again, Sean, to your point earlier, if this is a pension, if this is a layoff, this might be an option. Consider the lump sum payment. So do you want to roll it over? Do you want to take the lump sum? A lot of people have varying opinions, but it seems like there's a lot of data saying maybe the lump sum is the thing for you. But again, you won't know till you work with an advisor and kind of do the math, as you pointed out.
Right, and there's on this, there's definitely not a one-size-fits-all standard solution where you say always take the lump sum or
right.
defer it out and take the pension. But when I look at that, we do a lot of, because of the businesses that are out here, there are a lot of companies that still have lump sum pension options. And the way that I look at that, we have discussions around, okay, well, what's most important? Do you want to have a consistent monthly income? Is that really important to you? If it is, then let's probably look at the monthly. Or can we find a comparable income in the open market by taking a lump sum?
Right.
And then the second question is, well, what do you care about inheritance? Because if you take the pension and you pass away tomorrow and your spouse passes away the next day, there's nothing that goes on to the next generation. If you take the lump sum, that money is then inheritable. So when we look at the lump sum option, it comes down to income and inheritance.
Yeah, and I think for a lot of people, that's an interesting point you made there, because they think about the short term. Sometimes it's that easy kind of, well, this is what I need right now, but, what I want to do for later. And so, again, kind of going through and getting a professional opinion on all this and kind of dissecting some of it. And that back to point number 1, be calm and try to take a little bit of time with things can really go a long way. And I realize sometimes there's time limits on these, but at the same time, that knee-jerk reaction of the same day is usually not warranted. All right, step number 9, Sean. And this is kind of moving away from the math now for these final 2 steps of the this 10-step layoff guide. Determine whether or not, whether you were laid off, whether you are concerned about going back to work, whether you just kind of were at that point and you're thinking, I've had enough, whatever the case might be, for whatever reason, not just even COVID-based. Determine whether or not you even want to go back to work, or is it in a different kind of work? A lot of retirees or pre-retirees think about that.
Right. I mean, there's 2 different camps, right? There's the people that fear that they have to go back to work.
True.
When they're really ready to just retire.
Right.
And there's the other camp that says, hey, you know what? We're not ready to stop. Maybe we feel like we're financially secure, but we're not ready to stop. And so in either case, if your assets are enough to cover your expenses and you're prepared for whatever avenue you choose to pursue, in our experiences, many people who are capable of retiring just don't think that they are, because they have not created a plan.
Isn't that the case? Like, I think I read something recently. It was like 76%, I think, somewhere into the 70s, of folks that were nearing retirement, that were of retirement age, did not feel confident that they could retire. But of that 76%, most had no clue because they'd never found out. And you guys see this quite often. People come in, they go, I know I'm probably not there yet, but what do I need to do? And you have that happy news of being able to say, well, actually, guess what? You are there,
We get, a lot of people are great savers and have built wealth and have accumulated assets. But it's very rare for me to have somebody come into our office and be like, here's my clearly defined plan. Are there any problems with it?
Right.
Because
they just don't have
come
one.
to us, they don't have plans. Yeah. They just don't have a plan.
It's a collection of stuff, as we've said many times on the show.
Right.
I've got this, that, and the other. What can you do with it, Sean? And you're like, well,
exactly.
Let me get it. Let me pull it together. Let's see what we got here. and that's really where step 10 comes into play. And that's seeking a professional's opinion, getting together with someone. And we say it all the time on the podcast, always, always, always check with a qualified professional before you take action on anything you hear on this show or any other financially related, because you are different than your neighbor, and all that's going to change, dramatically. There's commonalities, of course, but every situation is different. So seek a professional's opinion, talk with somebody, because surviving a layoff could be doable, right? It's, even in these times, if you have some of that data and some of that information you can arm yourself with.
And I think clarity creates confidence. And if I'm just going to jump in the car and head to Massachusetts on a road trip, I could probably make it. I could probably wing it, and make it. But
might
if
take
I've got
longer.
Yeah, I mean, I may take a couple of wrong exits here or there, but I could make it. You just keep heading east, right? You'll eventually get there.
Eventually, when you hit water, you've gone too far.
Yeah, or maybe you got to go north or south. It depends on what road you took. But I think that clarity creates confidence. The reason I bring that up is that the more confident people are when they go into retirement, it's because they've put some groundwork in place. They have clarity on their plan. And that doesn't mean that you need to go out and say, just because I'm building a plan, I'm going to retire tomorrow.
Sure, right.
You build a plan for the what-if scenarios. What if you just say, hey, I don't want to do it anymore.
Yeah. I could retire tomorrow, but I don't have to.
Exactly. And that almost gives you a sense of control too. Like
liberation.
Yeah. Freedom.
Yeah, freedom. We all turn into the scene from Braveheart. Freedom.
Exactly.
So, I mean, putting these pieces together can definitely be liberating and finding some, even in stressful times of a potential layoff. And again, if you'd like to get this guide, if you've recently been laid off or know somebody who has or might benefit from it, or even, just want the guide because you can pull a few useful nuggets out of this towards your own situation, even if you haven't been laid off, but you're considering retiring or retiring early or whatever because of the pandemic's got you thinking about different things, get your copy of the 10-Step Layoff Survival Guide from the team at Elevated Retirement Group. Let me give you the number on this guide here, and that is 855-50-RETIRE, 855-50-RETIRE to get your own copy of this guide. And again, Sean, thanks for your time, man. As always, I appreciate it. It's a cool little guide. I think it's got some great pictures in it. It's got a lot of content. I think it'll be useful for folks. If they'd like to get a copy, they can just call and request one, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. We'll send it right out same day.
Okay, there you go. Pretty easy to do. So, as always, we appreciate your time on the podcast. Don't forget, subscribe to us if you haven't yet. You can do so at Sean's website, elevatemyretirement.com. That's elevatemyretirement.com. You'll find the podcast page. You can subscribe on whatever platform you choose. Lots of different ways to get the content to you here. A couple times a month we send out these shows, so hopefully you find those useful and you can extract a little nugget of information here or there. And if you do so, reach out to them. Before you take any action on anything, always check with a qualified professional about your unique situation. 855-50-RETIRE to talk to Sean and the team. 855-50-RETIRE. And my friends, stay safe and sane, and I'll talk to you in a couple of weeks.
Sounds good, brother. Talk to you soon.
Take care, and we'll see you next time here on Retirement Elevated with Sean Lee.
Investment advisory services offered through Elevated Capital Advisors, LLC, and SEC Registered Investment Advisor.